All right, guys, I am finally at 1,000 miles on my Performance Blue Elantra N and just wanted to share some more impressions. It's kind of the good, the bad. I wouldn't say there's any ugly. There's a few things that I think you have to compromise on a little bit, just knowing that you're in a $35,000, um, I guess you can call it a race car, but certainly not a luxury car. And so there are some compromises when it comes to that. So just hit a little bit over 1,000 miles today. I want to start off by talking a little bit about price. I get a lot of questions about price. I don't know how relevant that is for everybody. I think that it's going to be totally different state by state, dealership by dealership, and you know, almost everybody is marking these things up. It's pretty tough to find somebody that's right at MSRP right now. If you find it, more power to you. I paid a couple thousand over MSRP. In my situation, I wasn't too worried about it. It's the only car payment I have, only debt that I have, so it wasn't really that big a deal, and hoping to pay it off within 12 months anyway. So for me, I was willing to pay a little bit more for what I wanted. Now I know it sounds like a lot of you in comments and on Reddit, Facebook are um, kind of pre-ordering those, if you will, through the dealership, waiting for those to come in. I avoided that. I felt like that wasn't the best route, and that I was going to get kind of put on the back burner for some reason. It just seemed to kind of go that way. So we have about 15 Hyundai dealers in the state of Arizona, and I would start with the closest one, probably 3 to 5 days a week. And every morning at 8 a.m., I'd call the sales department and ask them if they had one come in. Some of them would get them on their notices that they'd be in the next 30, 60, 90 days, but they were just showing up on trucks and they had no idea. I ended up calling the first dealership on the morning that I got it, and they just happened to have a Performance Blue come in on the truck that the night before that they had no idea was going to be there. In fact, it had 9 miles on it. Nobody had taken it out. The general manager hadn't even seen the vehicle yet. So I was able to run over there that morning and grab it. But again, you just need to negotiate, be patient. If you're worried about being 5, 6, 7, 8 grand over, I wouldn't recommend it. But if you're that desperate, more power to you. Want to go into launch control because that is something that I just gave a try today. Having hit 1,000 miles, I felt like that was a pretty safe zone. It is a little bit fickle. It's you got to kind of mess with it a bit. I feel like you got to push down on the brake pretty hard to engage. Obviously, you're going into the N mode and you're selecting launch control, um, pushing down on the brake, and then you have to kind of slam that gas down. If you slowly push on the gas, you're not going to get launch control, and it'll just slowly rev up to 2,000 RPMs, but it won't do anything. It won't launch on you. It won't even chirp. So you really have to kind of play with that and figure out where that sweet spot is. NGS, man, it revs really, really, really high once you engage NGS. I haven't played with it a ton. I've probably only engaged that button 3 times. And, I'm not sure if I like it or not. It just feels like the transmission's going to blow out. I mean, you have to really get used to how high that just revs up. So I think I need a little bit more time to play with that. If any of you have some experience with that, certainly feel free to comment. I will say the paint, just comparing to other vehicles I've had, it feels soft. Like I got dings day one driving it an hour home from the dealership. So I would definitely recommend getting some paint protection film professionally put on there. If you know what you're doing, feel free. But you're probably going to be looking at $600 to $1,000 to kind of do a partial front end. But it may be worth it if you're really worried about that paint. But like I said, I've already got some little dings on the hood, on the front bumper. And with that, speaking of, just kind of the durability, the trim plastic, the red down at the bottom, it's very cheap. You can feel it. In fact, when you're even just wiping down that front portion of the vehicle, you kind of hear the plastic creaking a little bit. Certainly not super high quality. I don't think it's anything you're necessarily going to need to worry about long term, but just be aware of that. You can get some really good bug guts up in that plastic in the front end and in the hood emblem. The hood emblem is massive, and so you'll get a lot of dirt in there that you need to make sure you're cleaning out. Speaking of plastic, moving into the interior, um, the hard plastics, especially now that it's getting cold here in Arizona, we can get below freezing, believe it or not. And so in the morning time, especially when you're first getting out there, if you don't warm up that car, you're going to get massive jerking in the transmission, even just trying to drive it slow and normal if you're in N mode. So maybe keep that in normal mode or eco mode until your vehicle's completely warmed up, because that aggressive transmission is just really hard when the vehicle's cold. Um, but that hard plastic tends to creak a little bit, especially when it's cold. I feel like the warmer part of the day, you don't get that as much. I noticed that I have a 2016 Kia Forte 5 SX, which is basically the GT line version. It's the 201 horsepower, but it has a lot of hard plastics in there. I notice the same thing in the wintertime. It gets a little bit more creaky. So again, sacrificing a few things for the price for what you're getting. I will say it's a lot roomier than I was expecting. I've not actually been in an Elantra for a long time. I had a brand new one back in 14, and that felt really, really small. And then obviously I've got that Forte 5 SX, which I believe is like 7 or 8 inches shorter wheelbase than this particular vehicle, or not wheelbase, but overall length. And I can tell the big difference. It's much more roomy in the back. Really wish there would have been rear air vents in the center console, but again, sacrificing a few amenities for the fun. Huge trunk, massive storage in the trunk. Certainly not going to use this for any kind of hauler or Home Depot runs, but definitely a lot of room for you if you're taking this on a road trip. Get a lot of questions about the Bose sound system. It does fine. It's not going to break any records. It's not going to win any awards. It's very heavy on the highs and mids. There's not much bass. You only get a high, mid, low option to kind of adjust the audio settings in there. You could maybe slap an aftermarket 8-inch sub in the back dash where there's currently one now. Maybe get something a little bit more powerful. I feel like if you got a powered sub with an amp, it would probably solve most of people's sound issues with this particular system. It's totally passable. It works. It sounds fine. You got to get it up to about 40 before you even really start hearing any decent level of sound from that system. But it totally works. I honestly, I've had the car for over 3 weeks now, and I think I've turned the radio on twice. I'm just happy hearing the bass for not the bass, sorry, the pop, the crackle, the exhaust. I'm constantly in custom N mode. So I don't really care about the stereo at all. That may change in 6 months. I don't know, but I don't commute, so I'm not in need of any kind of you know long distance singing at the top of my lungs, and I also don't need to worry that much about gas mileage. So just different use case for everybody. A lot of people seem to be yay or nay on the Blue Link app. It works. It's slow. You do remote start. It can take 2 minutes before your car starts. So it just depends on what you're doing. If you're parked outside, not a big deal. Start it a few minutes before you head out. But it can be a little bit slow, and it works about 95% of the time. It's nice. There's some presets in there. You can set your temperature. You can set your uh, heat on the seat heater. So there's a lot of things you can do before you remote start. You can check your gas levels, your key fob, battery level, diagnostics. They'll send you monthly reports through Blue Link. I believe you get that for 3 years free. through Hyundai, and then there's a nominal fee after that if you decide to continue to use it. But you also have the digital key available. Digital key is pretty cool, very easy to set up. You just have to put your phone on the wireless charger. Don't forget that step, both when you're starting the vehicle and when you're setting it up. If you're using a remote start from that app, it tends to be a little bit more fickle. You have to have the doors locked. Um, you've got to be close by because I believe the digital key is Bluetooth, where the Blue Link is GPS, I believe. And you can correct me on that if I'm wrong. Um, the piano black, there is some piano black. It's very minimal on the interior, but there is a little bit of it, and we all know fingerprint magnet dust like crazy. I've mentioned before the infotainment system is a fingerprint magnet as well as a dust magnet. Have a microfiber towel in your car at all times because you will constantly use it and you will need it. Not a bad thing, just being aware of it. The floor mats are nice. They're decent carpet floor mats. They're N branded, so it's kind of hard for me to want to get rid of them right now. The weird thing, and even my Kia Forte 5SX has the little pins to pop down the floor mat on all four of them, but only the driver's seat has them in the Elantra N. I find that the one in the passenger seat, when you first buy it, if you don't kind of rub it down into the carpet and get those spikes down in there, you'll hear it sliding every time you take a turn if you don't have a passenger. It's quite annoying. I didn't know what it was for the first couple of miles, but so not a big deal breaker, but they just don't fit completely snug wall to wall in there, so you can get some slippage, and as you use the car more, that kind of goes away. The back ones, I don't believe they're N branded, um, and they're cheap. So I'm hoping that somebody has, some N branded ones. Maybe Hyundai will come out with some N branded ones. If not, I'll likely be updating those to some WeatherTech, or a different brand. I know that the trunk liner for WeatherTech does work with the Elantra N. However, that stabilizer bar in the back does get in the way, and you're either going to have to cut a little bit or you're just going to have to let it fold on that trunk liner if you want to get one of those now. So that's really it as far as first and 1,000 mile impressions go. So there are some good things. Like I said, launch control, once you get it engaged, is fantastic. It's awesome. It's really fun. Another nice feature is that once it's engaged and you've got your foot on the brake and you've pounded down on the gas and you're in launch control mode, you can actually toggle on the right steering wheel column to up the RPMs while engaged in launch control. So it's defaulted at 2,500. You can go into the launch control settings on the end screen and default it to be at 3,000, 3,500 RPMs, whatever you want. But you can do that on the fly as well, which is nice. So if you're not quite sure where you like it, or different scenarios call for different things, you can just do it on the fly and toggle that up to 3,000, 3,500 RPMs, whatever you like. I'm not used to launch control, never used it before, never had it in any of my vehicles. I think it works great even at 2,500 RPM. Some people say it's a little weak, but I think it works fantastic. It puts some spin on those tires, which I do not want to wear out, by the way, because those tires that come on the Elantra N are super expensive and really nice and tacky, and I'm trying not to burn through my first set too fast. So launch control is super fun. You just have to kind of find that sweet spot for yourself and trying to get that engaged. Once you engage launch control through the dash, it will stay engaged for 5 minutes. So you don't have to use it immediately. Once you use launch control, though, however, it disengages. So you'll need to select that again. I don't know if there's another manual way to kind of get into launch control mode or not. I just know it's really easy within that end menu. It's one button. You do have to make sure your electronic stability control is either in sport mode or is off. If it's in normal mode, you cannot engage launch control. And I kind of learned that slowly. There is a very quick Elantra or Hyundai branded a video on YouTube that is just for the Elantra N launch control. It's like a 2-minute video that walks you through how to engage. Um, but like I said, if you're not stomped down on that brake and hit that gas really fast, it will frustrate you. It took me about 5 or 6 tries to get it the first time. So I hope that helps. If you have any questions, please post it in the comments. Again, I apologize for the rawness of these videos. I'm not a YouTuber at all, but I just love this car. I love sharing information about it. Happy to answer any questions. We'll probably continue to post some videos here and there as I find more things. I'm excited about more things. But overall impressions, I would buy this car 10 more times. I love it. The Performance Blue looks way better in person. This car does not photograph well. I will say that a lot of people have been a little bit turned off by some of the lines in the doors. Some people don't like the grill. It looks so much better in person. And I feel that way about the WRX, the new WRX as well. It photographs even worse, although the plastic wheel wells are awful. It does look better in person. So give it a chance. If you're on the fence, wait till you see it in person. Start calling those dealerships daily and just hound them and bug them. You're going to care about this car more than they care about selling it to you, because the next guy that walks in's taking it. So if you just keep hounding them, calling those dealerships, eventually one will pop up. I believe there was one in Tucson the other day. If people are in Arizona and looking for them, I think there was a black one at Jim Glick, Click, whatever it's called, down in Tucson, maybe a couple days ago. So they're still out there. They're still coming in. Good luck to everybody, and hope to see some comments.